Great. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brian Benedict. I'm the development director from EDI on our Atlas product, and I'd like to introduce Nate and David from Salt Lake City, and one of our really wonderful customers who's using the Atlas mobile integration work order management system for airports. And so, Nate and David, if you can introduce yourself, and we'll get started. Thanks.
Okay, I'm Nate Bolander. I'm the technical systems manager here at the Salt Lake International Airport. I'm kind of a manager over the asset management team. And I've got Dave Huff here with me. He is a manager in the
airport operations manager.
Yep. And he's been our key to success with our airfield operations efforts with the Maximo. And I think today we're just going to kind of present our befores and afters of implementing Maximo and how it looked with our Part 139. And Dave has been the expert on that, so I'll let him kind of take over and do his show and tell. And please, if there's any questions, let us know, and we'll do our best to answer them. Thanks.
Okay, so are there any questions right at the beginning before I start of how we were and go to where we are now? Oh, okay. I'll go ahead and get started. So back in 2021, we were basically all paper in keeping track of our self-inspection. So I'm over the self-inspection. We've had a work order tracking system in place, and that had been in place for multiple years. And then the way that we showed our daily inspections was essentially represented on this Excel spreadsheet that I have demonstrated here. And if it just is pulled directly out of Part 139, you can see I've got the paved area section, safety areas, markings, signs, lighting. And this is an example. I pulled it out of 2020 because this is had some findings in it, and I wanted to show you what we were doing before. So if we had some signs, for example, right here, we had some signs that were obscured, we would issue a NOTAM, and the NOTAM numbers are right over here. It's down under the NOTAM column, and then we would have work orders issued against those NOTAMs and a brief explanation. I also had another tracking sheet that accompanied this that would give the details to those work orders and their progress. But the managers of the day, we did 2 inspections a day, and they're represented here. They would do a nighttime inspection and a daytime inspection, and that's how it was all represented on this Excel spreadsheet. And there were obviously some issues that I had with it, with our work order system, which was called Micromain at the time. I had no real way to represent things that we found on the airfield that were needed attention but weren't maintained by the airport. So for example, we would have contractors that would do work. Here's an example right here. Our in-pavement lights were shut off for work, and there was nothing wrong with them. They were just turned off. But it is an issue. It needs to be documented. And so I had documented it here, but I didn't have any work orders to put against it. And so that was one issue we were dealing with. And then all our work orders were turned in via radio. We would call in and say, I have a pavement repair that needs to happen here. And we would have to give the description over the radio to our control center a person would interpret what we are trying to tell them, and they would type it in our work order system, and they would issue it to our airfield maintenance. So there were all kinds of problems with getting the correct locations and getting the details to the work order translated over through our control center. They did a great job most of the time, but there were just times where they didn't get it quite right, or they issued the wrong thing. So they were essentially a middleman that was adding a layer of inefficiency. So we upgraded to Atlas and Maximo, and Atlas is the mobile platform. It's a visual platform, but Maximo is what runs in the background for us. And first, so we're going to go to Maximo here. So we wanted it still to produce, we wanted Maximo to produce a report for us that looked very much like our Excel spreadsheet, because that's what we've worked with the FAA for years, and they liked it. And so we wanted something similar to that. So we can go in and show them when they come down and sit down with us. We can show them, we can pull up all the inspections through the year, and they can look at any particular day. Maximo allows us to pull out just our Part 139 inspection. So there are other inspections that happen during the day that are not Part 139, but our Part 139, Maximo automatically generates every day a new inspection to fulfill our daily inspection for Part 139. So you can see in here all the inspections that we have each day as it comes through here, and opens and closes automatically at each day's inspection.
Hey, Dave, can I jump in real quick?
Yes.
Because you just hit on something really important. So certainly we're going through Part 139 inspections here. You know, for those of you folks who are on this webinar who might not know what that is, that's a federal inspection that every airport and most airports in the country have to go through just to make sure that planes can take off and land. And that's where you see some of this vernacular, like a NOTAM. That's just a notice to airmen, and some other things that the federal government requires. But Dave said something really important there. Atlas and obviously Maximo can do multiple types of inspections, right? So if you have life safety inspections, perimeter inspections, security inspections, whatever type of inspections are running at the airport, we have the capability of configuring that not only in Maximo, but also so that it translates over in Atlas as well.
Yeah, exactly. So our airport is using Maximo for multiple reasons, and one of the key reasons that we use it for, especially in airfield operations, is to track our 139 inspection. And that 139 is a regulatory process that the FAA requires us to maintain, and so that's a key component. And so we devise some reports that we can show to the FAA when they come through here, our inspections. So I can just pull up any day's inspection and then put in the inspection number. And Maximo generates this report. So if the FAA says, show me February 13th, 2022, I can go in, look at the inspection for the day, and generate a report. And it will look like this. You can have it put into a PDF or into an Excel sheet. As of right now, this is the type of report called a BERT report that Maximo will generate for us. And this was built for us, customized basically, because these are the things we wanted to show. And as you see, it does look similar. It's got the same inspection categories. It's got a satisfactory, unsatisfactory, a NOTAM column, a work order column. And I've also added a new thing, which is key and critical to what has expanded our tracking, is what we call a finding. So now I have a way to represent something at the airport that is not, that needs attention, that doesn't necessarily require a work order for our work group to maintain. So as you can see here, we have some things that came up, and it shows the status of them, whether they're completed or if it was completed and the date it was completed. And so this is really great tracking for us, that we can show the FAA about each one of the items that happen at our airport. So this was a key component that we had, was bare minimum about what we needed to show to the FAA. And then, so on a day-to-day inspection, it looks, let's see, like this. This is the prod.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to show you what it looks like when we do our inspections in Atlas, and how the end users actually see it. So Maximo is pretty much only used by me. I'll go through and I'll audit our work orders and our findings and all those items that are put in, and I'll go and verify each of these findings that get put in. But I am the only one in my work group that really uses Maximo on a higher level. All the managers in my work group do get in and do some work in Maximo, and I'll kind of show you that just a little bit later. But this is what the majority of us work with every day, and this is the inspection module. And you can see over here on the left-hand column, I have those exact same, under the tasks, the exact same areas of interest. So these are the regulatory sections that the FAA requires us to track and monitor. So in the left-hand side, on the right-hand side of this particular column, you can see there's an X, and that just means that there is a finding in that area. Most of our areas, we have findings. There are some that you can see don't have findings, but the majority of them, we have certain findings. When you're operating a large airport, there's going to be stuff to fix. And so you will see that in the pavement areas, you can see all kinds of things that are in there. And it's really easy for us to look at quickly. And we can look at it in two ways. We can look at it in this list approach, which kind of sorts by age. So the oldest thing is listed on top, right? Or we can go over here and see a geographic indication of where all the findings are on our airport, because each one of these findings, we put a geo tag on it essentially, so we know where they're located. So I can look and see, okay, I've got a runway over here, and if I'm interested in looking to see what this particular G finding is, I just can click on it and it will expand out, and it spells out, okay, so I've got a missing expansion joint on taxiway A7, and it tells me who created it, when they created it, and if a work order down here was issued against it. So just for us locally, we don't perform all the work on the airfield. If it's something that basically we only issue work orders right now for items by our airfield maintenance and our airfield electricians. So something that is our property that we need to maintain, we issue work orders against those. There are lots of other cases. I'll go down to our lighting, to where tenants, we have obstruction lights that are maintained by our tenants, and they are out and they need to be maintained. We have lighting that is taken care of by the FAA, and that is maintained by them. And these categories are right there. So for example, the FAA here locally works on our threshold lights. And so we have the work group that is spelled out here for the FAA. And in addition, the Maximo also allows me to send a report to the FAA each day about the findings that we have found that are their maintained equipment. So each day Maximo generates a report that gets sent to the FAA and tells them, this is the stuff that we've seen on the airfield that is your equipment that is being maintained. And as you've seen, one of the features of Atlas here, if I click and I have the map open, if I select the finding, it shows me where that finding is. So it'll automatically jump to the location to where that finding is. Now, there's another very important component to the findings that we have, which are regulatory. If you look at this circle here, it is a different color than the one right down here. And that jumps out at me because that tells me that that was a significant enough finding that it's out of specifications for FAA requirement. So that requires us to issue what we call a NOTAM, which is basically a notice to pilots and to other entities that are interested in our maintenance of our facility, what's operating, what's not operating. So this basically tells the pilots that we have the taxiway queue here, that the center lines are out of service. So this is a different type of finding than this type here. This AF is just one light bulb that's out. It's still functioning. There's a set of 2. So it's not out of compliance yet, but it needs to be serviced. So this is something, and if you notice, it's not quite as pronounced as I would like, but if you notice, the print here looks different than the print here. So one is blue and it's a different font. It signals me when I'm looking through my work orders, oh, this one is out of spec. This one is something that I need to pay extra attention to. And so I can point those out to the FAA when they come through here, and they would like to see our emphasis work orders and findings, which we have on the airport. So that's basically the overview of what you can see we have generated with our work order system right now. Are there, before I move on to show you how to create these, are there any questions that people have?
So David or
No?
Nate,
Okay.
could you communicate to the group what the FAA has, what they said about this system when they came and did your main audit, your significant audit over the last couple of months?
Yeah, we had our first inspection using this system just in May, and they liked it. They did not find anything. They actually were very positive about the feedback that we the way we were tracking it and the way it worked. So it was reviewed positively by them. We were really encouraged. So I spent probably 45 minutes going over all this stuff with the inspector. And another part of this, which I haven't mentioned yet, are these other two categories. Before I move on, are there any other questions?
Yeah, so there's a question here. Is this Atlas and Maximo both integrated? Yes, Atlas sits on top of Maximo. It's a third-party application for Maximo, so similar to some of the solutions you've seen from other vendors. It does sit on top of Maximo's, and it is fully integrated for Maximo.
Thanks, Brian. And by the way, it looks like we're not seeing the questions right off the bat here. So yeah, Brian, if you can fill those for us, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, so there's a data service or Wi-Fi connection for inspectors on the airfield. So if you guys want to answer how you're doing it, and then I can answer, what, if it is slightly different, what the capabilities are for Atlas on the airfield.
Yeah, so each of my each of my employees essentially has each one of the inspectors has a tablet, and we use iPad Pros is what we use, and they have air cards in them. So they are essentially mobile units where we can, and that's how we use it on the airfield.
Yeah, so you have the capability. It really depends on what your technology solution is. If you're using a tablet, if you're using a phone, if you've enabled those, tablets or phones, obviously phones would always have an LTE signal. Atlas works online and offline. So if you do want to just choose, hey, we're going to use this in Wi-Fi, as long as you sync and download whatever inspection or work orders you have assigned to that individual for the day, it'll work fine. And then whenever you reconnect to that Wi-Fi signal, it'll just sync all that data. But you have the option on each.
And this is Nate Bolger.
Yeah, Nate.
Oh, I just want to add in real quick to that. Our technicians that work indoors are also using this, and we have found that if your desire is to stay connected and not go offline, that you should really, even if you're going to be indoors where there's a Wi-Fi connection, you should really get a mobile device that has some cellular connection.
Awesome, thanks, Nate. Next question, is it using REST API? Pretty, let me get a firm answer on that for you, and I'm sure from the project folks, I'll get that answer to you individually. So thanks for asking the question. What handles your spatial portion? I can speak about it in general, but what are you guys using for spatial at SLC?
So at SLC, we've got our GIS data synced up with Maximo and with Atlas, so we can use it that way. And the aerial background that you're seeing there is provided by a company called Nearmap. Nearmap is a company that provides aerials on a fairly frequent basis. In our case, it's 2 times per year. We're under pretty major construction at the airport, so we knew we needed some sort of solution that would keep us updated so that our airfield ops and maintenance people could have an updated visual pretty frequently. And also it is an aerial that has high resolution, might take a while to render, but you can zoom in really close and get really good detail, which is very important for everybody involved. And just to show real quick, our GIS, that is accessed right here. You click on that and you have the different categories. Currently, we just have our airfield stuff set up. We're working on getting our internal stuff going, but for example, if I wanted to see our airfield lights, I can click on that and all of the airfield lights will come on. And they're all categorized as they are in the field. And so you can zoom in and you can interact with them. I can click on it and get some basic information about it. And Dave will show this later, but you can use that to create findings with as well. But yeah, that's what we're using. We're using our GIS.
Nate, there actually is a question around that. Are the lighting and nav aids assets? So for you guys, clearly it looks like they are.
That is correct, yeah.
Atlas is fully integrated with Esri, and obviously their GIS system, right? So we have the capability of fully interacting with Esri on this. So yes, it all depends on what you have done at your individual airport or your individual facility with GIS. But if you do have that information, that asset information built in, we have the capability of consuming that, as you can see here on the screen.
And by the way, just to add into that, the way we're doing that is our solution for Maximo is being hosted on the cloud. So it made sense for us to push all of our GIS data, including our aerial background, into the cloud, which we did through the Esri online. And then Maximo and Atlas just grabs that data from there.
Yep. We have another question. Is the integration of Maximo bilateral or one-way? Atlas is read-write, so it's pulling information from Maximo and pushing it back to Maximo, whenever it syncs. So yes, it is bilateral. It's not one-way. Okay, next question. What level of effort is there to implement this? This appears to be custom made for this use case. How much of this mobile solution is as is? So that's a great question. So EDI is, we can work with really any Maximo customer. Our specialty is aviation and life sciences. And honestly, everything you're seeing here is pretty out of the box. There's, one of our core theses is we do not do a very much customization at all. We would much rather be in the configure side of Maximo. So most everything you see here is out of the box. Certainly a 139 inspection is specific to airports, but as we talked about earlier, there's lots of different inspection types. As long as those inspections are built in the back-end Maximo system, Atlas can consume it. So, to answer your question, what you're seeing is a pretty out of the box implementation of Maximo for us. Question is the GIS read-write. So, April, let me get you a specific answer on that. I don't believe we're changing any specific GIS information through Atlas. That would be done on the back end side of it. But let me get you a specific and correct answer on that.
And I can talk to that as well. Yeah, that is correct. All GIS changes are done using the Esri software for us, and then they get pushed to Maximo. So once they're in Maximo, they're not, or you're not able to change them. Any changes have to be done through the software.
Fantastic questions. Thank you so much. We have 6-7 minutes left. David, is there anything, you were going to show how we interact with a map to do a finding. I think that's important to show. And then, folks, we, not to further promote what we have going on, I'll do a full demo of Atlas tomorrow at noon. So if you are interested in seeing more of this or asking some more specific questions, if we do run out of time here, we do have a 12 o'clock demo of Atlas tomorrow as well.
Okay, so I'm just taking us into our sandbox feature, which is basically just a test feature, so I can actually create a work order without creating one on the actual production side. So, so there's a couple ways that we can do work orders. So let's say we found a hole in the concrete on one of our taxiways. We can add a finding by hitting the finding button. And because we want to geolocate everything, we use our map to pull up and show exactly where we want to put the finding, for example. And each one of these layers can be opened at the same time or individually. So if it's on a taxiway, we would just highlight that layer and it would show up as such. The only thing that's a little frustrating right now is that the layers are opaque and I can't quite see through them. So I have to make my best guess about where that location is because I can't quite see through it yet. But all I need to do then at that point is tap on the location and it will ask me, okay, do you want to add a finding? And so it gives me a location description, and now I can add a finding. So at this point, I will put in a description. I still put in a brief description of the location and the surface because sometimes our maintenance doesn't use the geolocation like we would like. Feature. So I put in a brief description and I put it under the section for my department, which is basically 139. This is all that's maintained by us. If it was an FAA maintained asset, then I would select FAA. And if it needed an FAA published NOTAM, which is, as I explained earlier, something that goes out to all of the pilots essentially, I would, at this point, if I had generated one, I would put that in here, and it would look kind of like this. And
they're actually giving us the signal here that our time is up. I just want to thank you and Nate for everything here. You guys have done a spectacular job. And again, folks, if anybody wants to see more of Atlas, we're going to be talking a little bit about it at 2 o'clock today, and then we have a 12 p.m. Demonstration of Atlas as well. So David, Nate, you guys are the best. So happy that this thing's working out really well for you and that the FAA loves it. So again, thanks for all the questions. Everybody was awesome, and we look forward to hearing from you. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
Awesome. Thank you.
thanks.